Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen Nettapak, and welcome to the Magic Grove. It's Friday, and you know what day that is. It's tea and magic. This week, I have a very special guest. I know I say that every week, but I think this guest is beyond special because one, he is our first male guest on the show. I think that's like a milestone. And second, he's my cousin. We've had friends, but I've never had family on the show. So I wanted to welcome my very special guest, Brad Walrod. He is an incredible human being and also the creator of an amazing group on Facebook that I will leave the link to in the description called Become What You Believe. How are you doing, Brad?
Doing great. Thank you very much for, having me and letting me talk for an hour.
I love it. And Brad is usually, we were just joking previous to this on the Facebook. If you're watching this live or if you're watching this later on YouTube, we do host this live on Facebook. And so we're always chatting. And one of the things we mentioned is that Brad is always hosting meditations and other sessions for his group. And this is the first time he actually gets to chill and I get to hold space for him. And I'm so excited about that. You deserve it.
Oh, thank you. And with this weekend coming up, the timing is great.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Let's just dive into that. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening this weekend. We have got the massive solar eclipse, and this is like a life-changing eclipse. We've got the summer solstice. We've got so many things happening. Just give us a little insight right off the bat. You know, we're going to get into so much of this throughout the call, but how excited are you for this weekend? And what is it? What's happening in the cosmos?
Well, I've been knowing since January 13th that we were going to do a meditation on June 20th. January 13th was that big occurrence where everybody was going to on pilgrimages to Uluru, that big rock in Australia.
Yeah.
And there was this connection going on there. And I knew that was tied into tomorrow. So, I said in that meditation, we're going to be doing this again, sometimes in between, but also on June 20th. And then as it got closer, I realized there's 3 eclipses. Eclipses always come in pairs. There's always a solar and a lunar within a couple of weeks of each other. They don't always have 3 though. And we have 3 in 30 days this time. So on June 5th, we did a meditation, on June 20th, and then again on July 5th. So we have 3 in 30 days. And this time we've got a solar eclipse, a solstice, and new moon all within 9 hours of each other.
Yeah.
None of them were particularly convenient for like pegging my meditation to be exactly overlapping one of them. Unlike the June 5th one, we actually did it in the afternoon in my time so that it would be right at the time of the new moon and the eclipse. But still, with that much energy, anytime this weekend is a great time to meditate.
Yeah. And what he's speaking of, you guys, is Brad does host meditations. I will be including the link to his event this weekend. I'm going to be there. I believe it's 9 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. Pacific time. So
nope,
yeah.
Just the opposite.
Oh, just the opposite. It is. That's right. I'm like, wait, what day is it? It's Friday. I know the day, but I'm obviously confused on time. I'm going to be putting that link in there. Before we dive deep into talking about meditation and all that you do, this is going to be really exciting. I would love to ask you what you are drinking, because this is tea and magic. And I know that you brought the special tea that you told me you were going to bring.
Vodka. It's mostly vodka.
Yes, it's fried TJIF.
No, it's, well, first, I don't know if you can see that. I brought my Starfleet Federation of Planets
oh my gosh,
insignia.
I love that.
I thought you would appreciate that.
I love it.
In the mug. And then the tea is an organic turmeric from traditional medicinals. Let me read that. Yeah.
Yes.
Turmeric, which has been steeping for a bit now, and it's just perfectly temperature now to be sipping while we're talking. I told a friend that I was going to be doing this, and I mentioned some of your background and the legal parts. And I mentioned that I had a Geekies t-shirt from when you hosted the Geekies show. She goes, "Oh, you should wear that." And I said, "Oh, I've been sleeping in it. I don't really think we should wear that on video and on Facebook and Zoom and
oh, I love that. Thank you.
It's a bit worn, it's a bit worn, in other words.
Oh, yeah. Well, I so appreciate that. Which t-shirt was it? Is it the God, I think is it blue one or there's a
No,
white
it was,
one?
I got the white one and it had, the big main logo, I guess, on it and such. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Well,
So,
I should do a whole other episode on the geeky words, you guys. In case you're wondering what that is, I hosted my own award show for geeks, and I love that because Brad and I are both geeks. We're super sci-fi geeks. He actually posted something on his in his group identifying different spaceships, and I think I got all of them but one, and the one was the only one that wasn't in a sci-fi. It was like an actual
it
spaceship.
was the Saturn V rocket that's actual, the only one that's real.
And I'm
But
sitting
it
there
was a
going,
timeline of spaceships.
I
Yeah.
know. And I'm like, okay, that's the TARDIS, that's the Falcon. But what is this one? Oh yeah, that's the real one that actually went into space, which I absolutely love.
And
And
I won't unbutton my shirt, but I wore the solar system T-shirt that says, "In my day, there were 9 planets."
yes, hey, there's still 9 planets. I know Pluto's
Pluto's
planet,
getting the short
people.
shrift. Yeah.
Pluto is so powerful. It is such a powerful, integral planet that
A
I would
lot this
never
year
consider it.
too.
Oh my gosh, it's in retrograde right now. There's so
Retrograde
much
now. Hmm.
happening. Yes. And
And in
by the way,
conjunction with something the other day or a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
yes. So let's kind of dive into that. Well, you know what? First, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about your background. So Brad,
Yeah.
you meditate. You have such a fascinating background. I don't even think I know the full story, but you are so tied to the cosmos. You're obviously, I like to think of you as like one of the human ascended masters. You're really here to lead people and show people how to ascend and how to participate in this human experience through tools like meditation. And I would love to hear in your own words what you feel you're really bringing to your group and bringing to their experience, and also how you got there. And you had
Yeah.
mentioned that you traveled to India and you spent some time there. I'd love to hear parts of your story.
Yeah, I remember as I didn't prepare for the week necessarily or all week, but I mean, thoughts floated in my head, and I said, "Oh, I could talk about that," and I realized, wait a minute, it's only an hour. So I think I cut to the chase. I did move out of Western New York, where we're both from, and into Indiana for several years, and the reason for that is I went to school to be a special ed teacher. I never really finished that, but it occurs to it's always nice to look back and say, oh wow, I was into communication, I was into teaching. That wasn't the exact path I needed to be on, but I mean, even then I had the compassion, I wanted to help. It just wasn't as a special ed teacher as it turned out. I did end up learning how to typeset books, and that got me into New York. And when I moved to New York, I came here for to Manhattan. I came for a couple week vacation to visit with a friend, brought my resume with me. And on my birthday, it was a couple days before the end of the 2-week period, I got a job. And then the next day, my friend, her girlfriend, asked me, would you like to go to this introduction to meditation? So, a course, not a course, but not a workshop, a program, intro to meditation program at this ashram that she belonged to. And so that was my first step into meditation. She recognized I was reading like the holographic paradigm and other paradoxes. And so I was into the bigger thinking, beyond the 3D, but I hadn't focused yet on any kind of meditation. So I went that Friday night to that program, my first time hearing these talks, doing these chants, meditating with folks. This was the City Yoga Ashram, and the leader the guru was Baba Muktananda. He wasn't there, he was in India at the time. Well, it turns out, and I only found this like months later, I found this out. The night I was there, 11 and a half hours later, because that's how far ahead they are in India, he left his body. His Mahasamadhi, it's called the Great Samadhi or the Great Enlightenment. That's, what they call dying. He left his body. And while I was at the ashram learning for the first time how to meditate. And so I never got a chance to meet him in person, but it was like pretty, you'll hear the word auspicious a lot when people are talking about ashram stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty auspicious.
Yeah.
It was probably over the next year after moving there, I got in my apartment in Brooklyn. I started traveling up to the ashram and going to the programs in the evenings. And about, I don't know, a year and a half later, one of his two successors had an intensive, it's a weekend program with more talks and chanting and meditation. That's pretty much what you do in ashrams. Talks and the only other would be seva, which is selfless service. I went up for that, came up, it was upstate. Is actually, I ended up moving 25 years later to the same county about 12 miles away from the ashram. I had no idea I was moving into the same
Wow.
county where I got my initiation. And so the first was an introduction. This was what I would call an initiation. Here the guru goes around, the new one of the gurus that took over. He goes around, he was going, and I guess he can recognize who needs a little extra attention, who's a first timer. So all of a sudden, of all the people around me, he comes right to me, puts his 3 fingers right up on my third eye, between the eyes of my third eye, and shoots energy into me like you would not believe. Blue light entering into my forehead, traveling down my spine, and my kundalini, my root chakra just exploding.
Wow.
And that's the kundalini. It's awakening the kundalini energy that's dormant, coiled up like a snake, they say, in your root chakra. And then it just feeling it traveling up through my body like this blue light. Going through the nadis, and nadis are the subtle body analogous of the veins and the arteries, where those carry blood, these carry the subtle energies. And so, bursting through all your chakras. When you are working on chakras, you're talking about chakras opening. Those are nexus or nexi of the nadis, where they're like think of an overpass or whatever, and a bunch of highways coming together, where they come together and they all pass through like one area. If there's congestion, your construction's going on, you got blockage, and it takes a real effort to get through. Well, when you get awakened like that, when your energy goes bursting through it, it cleans it out. And when you're feeling activity in particular chakras, when you're meditating later on, for example, that's what you're doing, is you're cleaning out, you're cleaning house. You're allowing that subtle body energy to flow through your nadis and through that nexus that is the chakra, and passing through, and then just it makes life better.
Wow.
So one little addendum to that story is, as I came back to the city, went back to my apartment in Brooklyn, and I went to work the next day on Monday. Worked the day, don't remember anything about breakfast and lunch, but when I got off the subway, I stopped on the corner at a Boston Fried Chicken, that's what it was called, and got me a box of chicken like I would, but my normal, I'm sure it was my usual. Went up the street, down the block, up the 3 flights, sat down, went to eat my dinner, and this is as far as I got. I could not put that chicken in my mouth. So I always know exactly when I became a vegetarian, because exactly when I got my Shaktipat, the awakening of my Kundalini. I'd spent the weekend eating good vegetarian food, but obviously that wasn't the thing that made me a vegetarian. It was the awakening of the Kundalini. And so that's been together, those 2 things at the same time.
So fascinating. I don't really talk about my Kundalini awakening so much. I think I need to do a whole entire post on this, but mine happened it was a similar experience, but I was called through witchcraft, and I did a huge divination spell. I remember being in my yard and just feeling like I need to do this. And it was the same thing. I felt this jolt of energy pouring through me. And after that, my entire life changed. I stopped being able to eat certain foods. I went vegetarian for a long time. Now I eat fish, but there's just things I'm like, can't eat that anymore. And it's amazing when you're cleared out. I love how you say that. You're cleared out, you're clearing out your energy. Your body reacts to that as well. There are things that I know I went through, like a massive adrenal fatigue. My body was exhausted, and it was like, okay, you need to actually stop. I wasn't meditating a lot at the time, so I needed to incorporate a lot of that into my routine. But I don't think a lot of people are familiar with the Kundalini awakening. People feel like I'm awake and I'm conscious and I kind of understand that there's something bigger. But I believe another step to that is the Kundalini awakening, right? It's like the actual energy clearing of your body.
It's a path. I mean, what we've described and being so sure we knew when it happened isn't always what everybody feels.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens in a much more subtle way. I think it tends to, when you're with a master or something like that, it will tend to be more obvious. But I think it's by far more interesting to be on your path and not worry about the particulars of, and
Yeah.
not comparing with anybody. That I just want to mention that in passing. After that, by the way, a few months later was summer. Both the two gurus had taken over for Baba, a brother and sister team, were in residence at this ashram on the other side of this county. And I spent the summer up here with them. And that was just amazing. I took a break from work and it literally took off a month or two. I don't remember exactly. And just having that daily experience, being in all that energy. Also, by the way, in case anybody thinks this sounds really, really peaceful, think about some of your meditations and that you come out of it and you're like full of rage. Okay. Sometimes it brings shit up. So we were hundreds of people packed in, like sometimes, bunk beds, 4 bunk beds in a room to get everybody to have room
Yeah.
to, sleep over. And it got intense. There were definitely some intense moments. But I was sort of ended up being what they call the host. My Seba was to be a host. So it ended up calming people down, which is kind of cool. When this is leading up to when I got finished with that summer, I went back to Manhattan and quit my job and moved to India. And it was a plane full of people going back to the Ganeshpuri, the ashram in Ganeshpuri in India. People I knew going there to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of Baba's Mahasamadhi. Right now, it had been 2 years since my intro program at this point. And it seemed, I was in my mid-20s, it seemed like, when else am I going to feel free enough to do this? Just this seemed, I know people that are going. I'm young enough that I'm not going to, it's like I have a mortgage or anything, it's so I went for it and spent 6 months there. And that became more of the same as far as dealing with it. Ended up being the head of security before it was all over at that ashram in India. And I really had some amazing experiences, but that's a whole hour.
Yes, I think we need another hour to talk about that.
Just about India, yeah.
Yeah. So let's dive into meditation, because I do feel that there is a misconception there are people that hear the word meditation and they think, okay, I just got to sit still and not do anything and try to clear my thoughts and that's it. And they're not really understanding, or perhaps they just have been taught what meditation really is. And I know it's such an important part of your practice, but what is meditation to you in your own words? Can you share with this group for people that,
of course,
may not know?
I came back from India, and within a couple of years, I was out on my own. I didn't stay with the ashram any longer. I'd learned what I was there to learn. It ended up putting me in connection with things like the Seth material, Jane Roberts' channeling of Seth, and other things like Joseph Campbell, and being around all these people that are spiritual seekers. You end up getting, hell, we had a box of books in India that way the box you read when you're flying there, you didn't want to carry home.
Yeah.
But you would take books out of that box to read when you're going home, right? So this was the box of the books, and I got so many different things out of that box. And so, yeah, learning different paths, learning different ways of approaching things. Now, I've meditated since then, but I wouldn't say those several years was every day. Probably the first few years out of the ashram more, and then there was some points when I didn't, and then got back. But one thing I've seen over the years is how it's evolved, how my own practice has evolved. I was never a Buddhist meditator, and that tends to be the ones that are silent, and you're not this, not that. You're not anything. You just try to get into a point of silence, which, ironically, tomorrow in the meditation we actually going to touch on that a little bit, but that's getting ahead of myself. So I've always been more one that and maybe it's because I started in the ashram where we had music, we had chanting and stuff like that. I've always wanted to have a little bit of stimulus, not the least of which to keep my busy brain active, keep it active in a good way, keep it active in a focused way, but something that keeps me from making grocery lists. Even when we go silent in my meditations, I often, probably always, recommend a mantra. Say, hey, if you're starting to make grocery lists, try saying this mantra just to bring yourself back, So there's mantra yoga, which it may be entirely silent, and all you're doing is you're repeating something like Om or Soham or Om Namah Shivaya. They tend to be Sanskrit. To be honest, you could buy the world a Coke. I mean, you could use a brand, slogan or something, as long as you're repeating it and you're keeping focused on that. But the Sanskrit is additionally nice because it's been brought down over the centuries, the millennia, as particular vibration. So there's an actual extra oomph to a Sanskrit mantra. But you can do silent. You can do silent with a mantra. You can do chanting. Chanting is very much a kind of meditation, and I love it. If you ever get the opportunity, every once in a while, I'll get an itch and we'll do a meditation in the group where it's an Om Namah Shivaya chant. Usually it tends to be. Chants can get awfully complicated, and so I tend to stick with like Om Namah Shivaya and basically the different cadences of Om Namah Shivaya. But you can do one that's more complicated. Just focus on the chorus most of the time will get you through it, and don't worry too much about the stanzas where they just had a bunch of words that are changing every other sentence, because then that you really got to know more or have something in the book in front of you or something. But a chant is just a wonderful, because you're vibrating your chest, your muscles, your throat, passing through your throat, is just a wonderful way of experiencing that bliss of meditation. So chanting, guided meditations. I do guided meditations. I do them in my practice. I listen to them like every day, and I lead them a guided meditation, and I love them. I mean, they can be just particular angels being called in or whatever, and talking about your chakras, or they can be a visualization that takes you on a trip. And I've got one that was a journey through the seasons, I think I called it. And we went through like spring and summer and fall and winter, and we were like crossing an island, and we were coming up with obstacles and how do you get around the obstacles, and just there were all kinds of opportunities for subtle growths, that not meaning to be a trickster, but I mean they were ways of getting your mind to think differently about things. But it was a trip, it was a journey. So there's that kind, which I like, but I don't always, come up with a full journey every time.
Yeah.
But tomorrow's is going to be a little bit of both. I think it's going to be a little bit of journey, a little bit of chakras, a little bit of sacred geometry, and then some silence. So when I call it silence, it'd be silence with music. Okay. So all of these are kind of different ways, and fully expect over the years and decades, I don't know the age of the people watching, but I mean, whenever you start, that's the right time to do it. But fully expect it to evolve. Or even evolve might not even be the right word, because it feels like it's a trajectory like this. Allow it to change, to fluctuate. I have a YouTube channel where it has a boatload of playlists, lots of different meditations from lots of different people. Now you might go to that and go to an Ofina and Sakal, which are like my bread and butter. I love Ofina and Sakal, but they're really intense. You might do one of these and say, oh my God, I hated that. But then you go to another one that's like Mother Mary or something. So, this is better. This is like no aliens, and it's like not like it's like just really mellow, right? And that's what you want to hear today.
Yes.
Don't discount the fact that in 3 to 6 months, you're poking around my playlists. I'm hoping you're still there. And then you go say, what happened to Ofina and Sakal? I'm going to try that again. He's got like 100 some meditations on that list. It's got to be something special about that. And so you go back and you pick one at random, and it's like the best thing you've ever heard. But you hated it the first time. That is normal.
Yes.
Because the meditation probably didn't change a hell of a lot. It was recorded like 3 years ago. You probably are the one that changed.
And that, we were just talking about this the other day on our pre-chat is, well, first of all, I am, that is the way that I meditate, is through chanting and through journeys. For all of you, I know how difficult it is to just be still. I also don't really do the Buddhist method because I'm like you. I will start making that shopping list in my head and thinking about all the things I need to do. But I do find that chanting is so powerful because of the sound vibration in my body. Those words mean something. They have specific vibrations to help that energy in your body as well. And then also for all of you watching, divination tools, things like using tarot cards, that's also meditational, even though you might think, oh, I'm not sitting still. That really is taking your mind out of that, the thinking mode, and tapping in and tuning in. So there's just so many different ways. But we had talked about, and I love that you brought this up, the evolution of your meditations. And you might have meditations that you've been holding on to, that you've been doing forever. And you had mentioned that there is a point where you have to kind of reevaluate those meditations.
Yeah, if you're doing the same thing over and over, it's fine if that's like your thing. But the way to know if it's really fine is to evaluate. What are you getting out? Are you still getting as much out of it as when you started? Are you continuing to get more out of it? If you're doing, I mean, some people are like that. They'll do the same meditation always. I mean, literally the same one all the time. To me, like my brain would like go crazy. I just like, I need something different every day.
Well, you're in the flow. That's what I love. What you said, you're in the flow. So I think you intuitively know what you need that day, which is so beautiful.
Now, it's not to say I don't repeat them. And in fact, I highly recommend repeating a meditation. You get a good meditation, whether or not, I mean, some people would meditate. I know people that will finish the meditation and start it again. I mean, like right away. That's also not my thing so much. But later in the day, listen to it again. Or later in the week, I've got an Ofina and Sakal to give them, more advertising. That is they recommend doing it every 3 months. I think it's every 3 months. So I actually, and I love this meditation so much that I actually have a thing in my phone, a reminder in the phone that I keep updating every 3 months, and reminds me the beginning of the month, every 3 months to do that one again. Because every time you do repeat, I say a good meditation, one that's good for you, you get more out of it. And it's always a surprise. I kind of laugh because it even surprises me. It's like, I don't remember that. I don't remember hearing that. I don't remember experiencing that the first 13 times I listened to it, whatever. If that's what's happening, then that's good. Things are evolving. Things are getting better. It's working. But in and above that, how is your life being affected by the meditation? How do you feel when you get out of it? I did mention earlier you could get out of a meditation and be enraged. Well, that shouldn't be every day. You should feel uplifted. I mean, I hate to use the should word, but I mean, come on, it's common sense. Meditation should make you feel better. It should start your day off better. If you're doing a morning meditation, which people do recommend, it's a great way to start the day. Are you going into the office, if it's an office job, feeling better? Are you better around your family? Is it more peaceful? Is it working, in other words? And is it lasting? I meditated for years and decades, and 5-6 years ago, I took some silly ass test on Chopra's site, Deepak Chopra's site. It was to determine your dosha, right? And I'm not going to try to list the 3 because I always mess them up. No, I'm not going to try. But I took this test, and then it evaluates as what your dosha is. It's like an Ayurvedic thing. It's like kind of what your body and your personality type is and stuff. And its recommendation really pissed me off, because his recommendation was I should meditate a second time every day.
And now you do 3 times, right? Sometimes 3 times.
I'm like, I meditate every day. Nobody else meditates every day. Hardly anybody meditates there. I meditate every day. I really resisted this for a while. And then finally, whatever the reason was, I started meditating. A little tip, a little side here. Tie your meditation or anything else you want to make a habitual thing to something you already do every day. So, for example, for me, I always refer to my pre-breakfast meditation, because I'm going to eat breakfast, and my pre-dinner meditation because I'm always eat dinner. Now, so that doesn't mean it has to be the same time every day, but generally it's before I eat breakfast, before I eat dinner. These are things I'm going to do every day, so it's easy to remember to do it then. I have a friend who's a dentist. He's always busy and stuff like that. I said, what do you do every day? He goes, well, I brush my teeth. I said, okay, you brush your teeth in the office? He goes, yeah. So when you brush your teeth at home? He goes, yeah, of course, at the end of the day, I said, okay, you should meditate before you brush your teeth at night. Because that's something, because his mornings are always, he starts at different times because it's dentist office, right? But I say, that's going to be the time for you because you can hook that into that. So that's just a little side tip. But you need to evaluate whether it's working for you and whether it's lasting for you. And if you resist it, just hearing what I just said about doing it a second time a day, then you know that you probably are going to have to do it.
Yeah.
if you really resisted hearing that just now.
Now, I'm going to say this because I know you. We talked about life path 8s. Brad and I are both life path 8s. And that's the leadership position. Those are the people that are holding space for others. And when I heard that, I immediately thought, well, of course you have to meditate several times a day because you're here to teach other people how to meditate. So the universe is going to make you meditate multiple times a day. So it's part of your path.
That's my path. That's my sadhana.
True.
And where I would agree with you is that he's now given me a story I can share with people.
Yes.
I can tell you, and I didn't have a problem with drinking, but I mean, my usual schedule would be like I maybe would work after dinner and then watch some TV and have a beer or two. When I started that second meditation, I would still maybe try to have the beer. And it was like, it used to be like a relaxing thing, and now it's kind of bringing me down, man. I'm doing good. It
technically is a depressant. Yeah,
it's bringing me down. So it's like now, I mean, I'll go to an art opening and have a glass of wine, but I mean, I've had a bottle of beer in the fridge for 2 years. I hope it's still got them, still good. I mean, just like I have no interest because these things they bring me down.
Yes. And the meditations are really raising our vibrations. I mean, like you said, they're clearing out our energy and our energy is going up. You talked a little bit about the various types of meditations, and you mentioned some ascended masters and some other aliens that I'm not familiar with. I'm curious who you most often worked with and there's the meditations, you're chanting, you're clearing your energy, but then there are the meditations where you are accessing these, I don't really want to call them deities, so I'll call them ascended masters or other spirits or other entities. And that's a completely different, I believe, level of working with your energy.
You're gonna feel into this stuff. One thing about feeling these energies and feeling, I think this stuff about how is it at work when you get to work is anybody can recognize that. If you're not feeling it while you're meditating, if you're not like your head exploding and stuff like that, where sometimes we talk about that, my first recommendation is to find someone you trust. I'm not talking about having a guru. I'm not talking about even a mentor necessarily, although I suppose maybe I'm a mentor to some of the people in the group.
You are a mentor.
But I mean,
the group's going to agree with that.
I would like to think that I'm someone they can trust, that they've read my posts and they've, followed my recommendation to check out a meditation or check out a blog or something like that. So they get to the point where they can trust me. And I've heard now, the group's been open about 4.5 years. So we've had time for people to say, when I started this a couple of years ago, I didn't feel nothing. But they trusted me. They resonated. They liked what I was posting, whatever. And then they've gotten to the point where now they will feel the energy. And you may never, okay? It's totally different for each person. That's why I stress, how is it affecting your life around you? And I definitely want to make that a point, because you might not feel it. But if you are feeling stuff, or let me put it another way, based on your question, by trying different things, you may find you're feeling different ways with different types of meditation, different types and different, like guides. So I listen a lot to Melanie Beckler, who channels a lot of Metatron, all the angels pretty much, but a lot of Archangel Metatron and Michael, Orion. Those three were in the meditation I did this morning with her. And I was frankly the last person in the world I would have thought would be meditating with angels. I'm not saying I didn't have some Catholic upbringing and didn't go to a Catholic high school, but other than a brief flirtation with, gee, maybe I could be a priest, which everybody at Catholic high school has to kind of process that at some point, because you have some good teachers, and they're really helpful, and you got the bad ones, but
Yeah.
those good ones that inspire you, you think, oh, maybe I should be a priest.
And we also
Other
grow
than
up
that,
we also grow up to believe that angels are, religious, and it's part of the Catholic religion, when really they're completely separate entities.
I brought this up to a Christian pastor recently, and I mentioned how a lot of times in our meditations, there'll be Archangel Raphael to the east and Michael to the south and Gabriel to the west and Uriel to the north. And he stops me right there and says, you realize only two of them are like legitimate. I'm like, say what? I said, Michael and Gabriel? He goes, yeah. He says, the rest of them are in the Apocrypha. They're not in the Bible. And he was like a real Bible guy, So it's kind of that was an interesting divide right there. But yes, in my mind, angels were, religious, and I wasn't thinking of myself as a religious person. But the fact of the matter is, I would be listening to these meditations, and I would, get over the fact that she had angels. But then I started feeling, that she had different angels. Oh, I got an interesting little story. I talk about people feeling different things, right? I went through this period where I would feel a little tingling in my beard or in my jawline, say. And then I may do another meditation a day or two later, whatever, and I feel a little tingling, but it's down here. Okay, well, it's tingling, but it's a different spot. It took me a while to put two and two together. As she was channeling different angels, the tingling moved.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my little physical or even subtle way of recognizing that I was feeling the energy from, and it was different for different entities. So that was pretty cool. I never mapped it out to figure out which one was which, tingle. But I mean, it took me, I was like, okay, well, when you see things like that, whether it's something like that in your body, whether it's driving down the road and someone cuts you off and you don't give them the finger, but instead say, wow, he must be having a really bad day. Recognize these things. Don't just put it off like, oh, I must have, had my Wheaties this morning. Recognize it as a result of your practice.
Yes.
And celebrate it.
That is so
and
beautiful.
Then see when it happens again. When you have gratitude for it happening, you'll just get more of it.
And this is beautiful, leading into the next thing I was going to ask you. And just to reiterate, this is why we do the practice. We're clearing our energy, we're clearing our wounds, we're clearing our conditioning, all this crap around us, so that we can vibrate at a higher level. And then we begin to experience life in a completely different way, with more joy, with more happiness, with more positivity. And we're not so angry that we're going to flip that guy off. And so now let's look at current events. This is everything that's happening in the world right now. How important is it to have a practice like this and to utilize these tools?
As the way Deepak Chopra words it, who's another person I've listened to, he does a 21-day series. If anybody listening isn't a meditator yet, 3 times a year, generally, he does a 21-day series. They seem like they're basic meditations. They start off a little intro by Oprah Winfrey. He gives 8 or 9 minutes of talk, and then it's like 8 or 9 minutes of repeating the mantra to some music. They sound very basic. I'm doing this now for decades. I do them every time they come out because you experience at the level you're at.
Yes.
And they are such high energy, you won't even know when you're a beginner meditator. But you take it from someone who's been doing it a long time, they are actually quite powerful. And the thing about the 21 days, it gives you a reasonable goal. Because as Chopra says, and the way he puts it is, all the wisdom traditions say you've got to have a daily practice. And I hate to talk in shoulds, I hate to talk in got tos, but honest to God, this one's a deal breaker. Now, you get to define, now that I've said it's a deal breaker, you personally get to define what that practice is. So for me, I meditate once or twice a day, at least twice a day, myself. But I mean, I recommend meditating every day. But time in nature.
Mm.
I mean, seriously, not just looking at a tree out the window, which is nice, but I mean, actually, getting out and walking in the forest. Quality time in nature, or at the beach. Bubble baths, the nice music and a bath. So, when you start thinking about it, what raises your vibration. You might think of it
Yes.
in terms of what's relaxing, or what makes you, not want to sell the kids off at the parking lot outside the grocery store. I mean, what raises your own vibration. I truly, honestly believe meditation should be part of that. And if you can make it every day, that's great. But a daily practice of raising your vibration, yes, does make you better off, but also affects the rest of the world.
Mm. And
It
some of the
affects your
things,
outlook.
yeah, some of the things you mentioned too, they're meditative. So I
Yep.
think that they count, right? I mean, walking in
Oh,
nature, going for like
absolutely.
I take a hot shower, like that's kind of meditative for me. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's just a
Well, anything with water. I mean, see, that's the thing about water. Anything with water, like I mentioned the beach, I mentioned hot tub. I'm a shower guy myself, but I mean, yeah, anything that involves water is like automatically right there. It's automatically raises you up. But when you're doing this practice daily, in whatever manner works for you, you're not just affecting, and I shouldn't say just, how you affect yourself is paramount. It's the most wonderful thing, but you're also affecting the people in your house, the people in your neighborhood, the people in your town, the people in your country, the people in the world. Okay, and you don't know that. It's not always the most the most challenging one's the house, because these are the people you've had decades of pushing buttons. And so like sometimes that's not it. Sometimes it's easier to notice people being nicer to you at work or just being nicer at work, than it is at the house. The house, it helps if more than one person meditates probably, but
yeah.
house can be tough. We're in this house for a reason. It's like those button pushers are progressing our sadhana, our spiritual path,
Absolutely.
a
Absolutely.
lot.
My yogi always says if somebody pisses you off, thank them. Thank them for the
And
experience
gratitude is
to
huge.
grow.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, but you are, sometimes you get to the point where you just have to have faith that you're affecting. And it helps that sometimes you see the studies. The Maharishi did a study where they were doing a lot of meditating in DC. There's been several studies, but the one in particular that I'm remembering is they did it in Washington, DC. And during the 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it was that they were doing all this meditating, the crime rate in the city went down
Yes.
dramatically. Now, they weren't meditating. The criminals were not coming in to meditate. That's not what was happening. The meditators affected the city around them, unbeknownst to the city around them. It wasn't
Yes.
trickery. It was just like, it's not going to hurt anything. Let's try. So you do, you have to have some faith sometimes. And that's when it comes into like people you trust. Okay, some people like Sandra Walters. I love reading Sandra Walter, and she's just, and Deepak Chopra and others. They're seeing things at a higher level, and I don't know,
Yes.
higher, lower, not better, worse, or something. But they're at that level, and they can see stuff. Okay, I'll give you an example from 1987. Went up to a mountain, eastern New York State here. I was in Manhattan at the time, living in Manhattan or Brooklyn. And we went up, I had a little Seth group of people that were reading Seth. And we went up to a mountain in August 18th, I think, 1987 for the harmonic convergence. And this was a big alignment, so it was a big shift in energies and stuff like that. We went up, we rented a cabin, we spent the weekend doing this meditation, and then we went back home and we went to work. We had this was before the internet. This is before cell phones.
Like I think I did something.
Fucking idea if we did anything. No, all
Yeah.
we know is we had a damn fine meditation up on that mountain. And sometimes that's all you know, and that's
Yes.
satisfying. Well, I'm only hearing decades later from people like Christoph Melchizedek and from Sandra and from several others. I can't remember naming them all right now. How much we changed in '87. But I've waited decades to hear that. I had
Yes.
no idea. I had to have faith. Sometimes that's what you have to do. As far as what's going on these days, it helps to understand that the ascension path is actually a stairway.
I was just going to ask you about this. This is the work we're doing, and the bigger picture you just mentioned that Deepak sees and a lot of us see is that the ascension is the growth, is the bigger picture. And I love this.
Now, there's different steps on the stairway. None are better, better or worse. They're just where people are at the moment in this particular lifetime or whatever. One step people will recognize immediately is tribal. Okay, tribal, you recognize that in yourself and in others. Pride in your town, in your country, in your sports team, and getting aggravated about it. I mean, getting like intense about your tribe. Now, you might say at first that you might think at first I'm going to say something bad about this, but the fact of the matter is, as another great person I work with, Eugenia Oganova, talks about, with the tribal level, that is getting people out of their own self, out of thinking about nothing but themselves, and about thinking of a group. So there is the lesson there. The tribal level, they're learning to get out of their own ego and into caring about others. Mm. Now has that limit of the tribe, but there's no reason you can't. That doesn't mean you're stuck there all this lifetime. There's no reason you can't also start exploring the cause level, where you're not so much thinking about the Buffalo Bills, but you're also thinking that Black Lives Matter. And so, and I'm, they say you're white, for example, and you're thinking about Black Lives Matter. So there's a cause that's taking you out of your own tribe. Mm. And what is it doing? It's like, it's raising your compassion, but I think it's more like it's exposing your compassion. Compassion was already there. It's just you're exposing your compassion, and you're wiping away the cobwebs of white privilege or whatever. It was funny we talking about this because today is Juneteenth, and if anybody listening doesn't know what Juneteenth is, it's the day, June 19th in Texas, and I'm not going to remember the year, but it was 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation when they finally told the blacks in Texas that they were free. 2 years later, yes. June 19th, whatever year it was, 1856, I don't remember. But Juneteenth is always June 19th. There's a big push now to make this a national holiday.
Yes.
It'd be interesting. If it's ever going to happen, it seems like this is the time, right? And so it's very exciting to me to watch what's going on. Now, obviously, no one wants to see anybody have to die. That's so, your compassion, immediately opens up to that. But watching the result, watching the reaction, I should say, of people, it's just amazing. And we're seeing Confederate statues being taken down. We're seeing our congressman is talking about, actually the congressman, one district over, he's the congressman for the West Point Academy.
Wow.
He was talking about taking away, their Confederate, something to do with Confederates. I think it's their scholarships or programs or something, but renaming them. People talking about renaming schools. There's a lot going on. Now, this is what's exciting to watch. When you're at the level that star seeds, way showers, and what's the word I always forget? I even write it down.
There's sometimes. So many light workers.
It's way shower, light worker. I'm gonna be upset that I don't remember the name of it, but it's the third level where you're anyways, you're a little bit more aware than, say, the tribal and causal. Okay. And you're at a level at this point where you're able to discriminate, not the right word, discern. Discriminate is a
Discern.
perfectly good word, but I mean, it's
Yes,
like
but
this,
discern
yeah.
is the perfect word.
Yeah, because discriminate is like it has a bad connotation now.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're discerning what's going on and detached. A lot of D words. You can. It doesn't mean you're not feeling. Doesn't mean you're not compassionate. Doesn't mean you don't feel joy. But to be detached from what's going on and to not be drawing conclusions and not getting angry over everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a Black Lives Matter march without being angry. Not everybody. Some people have to get angry to get out there and do it. And but as a way shower, you can discern that that's okay. It doesn't mean you got to get sucked into the vortex.
Mm.
And by staying at that level, and I don't mean to make it bigger, better, whatever. It's just like where if you're watching this, there's a good chance you understand what the hell I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay, if you're watching this show, you get it. That you're here for. Again, I want to say higher purpose, but I'm trying very hard not to make it sound like But some of these levels can be compared to grade school and high school and college and grad work. I mean, and there's nothing you don't expect somebody that's 10 years old to do the grad work, unless you're young Sheldon or something, on the TV. But it's like there's nothing bad about not being at a certain level. You've been born more times, or you've come from a star seed
Mm.
race or something. It's not a good and bad thing. But if you're watching this, you probably understand that you can affect change in the 3D without necessarily feeling like a victim or needing to blame someone. That's what's driving me the most crazy about Facebook these days.
I am
All my
feeling
favorite
that.
people are talking about the victim and the blame. And I'm like,
Yeah.
come
And
on,
that,
you guys know better.
well, and we talk about that a lot on this show is the victim mentality versus self-power. I mean, magic is power. Doing these practices increases your self-power and it elevates you to the point where you no longer see yourself as a victim. You see how powerful you are as a human being. And some of the things that I love that you touched on, one that when you meditate and not just meditate, when you're doing your practices and you're doing your work, you don't always see, and maybe not even in this lifetime that you're alive, you don't always see the results, but it's there. Like, keep doing it. It's there. I was just having this conversation with somebody, is we constantly get stuck on the results. Like, okay, I did this thing and I need to see the results. I'm doing this practice and I need to make a business. I need to make money, but really know that just by doing the work, that energy is going out there.
Do
And the other
not
thing,
be.
yeah,
I'm going to let you finish, but let me just say, do
sure.
not be attached to the results of your
Yes,
action. It's
yes.
so hard. I need to reverse tattoo that on my forehead so I see it every time I look in the mirror. Do not be attached to the results of your actions. It's a
And
great lesson.
that's the other part of the lesson is, first of all, there's so many wise ones that came to this planet that we are still learning from thousands of years later. I mean, that's how important it is to put that energy out there, whether it's in writing or just doing your daily work. It's going to have an effect on the planet. And the other part of that is we have no control over who chooses to take that wisdom and when. That's a really big thing right now, is that we're like, okay, but I'm teaching people and I'm meditating and I'm doing all these things and the world around me isn't changing. But these human beings that are here right now, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of years and a lot of decades to change. And I love what you mentioned about, there really are no levels, but I truly believe that, most humans come here for the karmic experience. They're here to grow. They're here to learn. And there are a group of volunteers, of star seeds, of light workers, the waves that came to specifically impart wisdom from the cosmos and from whatever it is that we are very individually teaching to the human race. And so we're kind of like, okay, here's the wisdom. Now I'm going to go. And it might be hundreds of years from now until things change. But if you are watching this and you feel like, wow, I'm really one of those starseeds, I'm really here for that reason. I love what you said. Like, we can have compassion and we can have discernment and we can detach. but just know that all of the work that you're doing will have an impact at some point. I think
Oh
that's
yeah, and
so important.
it's having the impact now as well as in the
Yeah,
future. It's just that you don't
absolutely.
necessarily know what the impact is.
Yes.
And the way reality is just like this, it's this agreement, this is this mass agreement. And if we change enough, if we make it, what will happen is a shift. You hear you create your own reality, and then you also hear timeline shifts. Well, it's the same
Yes.
thing. It's just that we're creating the reality on a day-to-day basis, and then at some point we will hit a point, just like apparently we did with the harmonic convergence, and apparently happened in 2012, and should be continuing at an accelerated pace now, where you're doing the practice, and a shift will occur, and you may or may not even notice it. There's these there are these examples of the Bernstein Bears and the Mandela effect, Nelson Mandela effect.
Yeah.
And you know, the Nelson Mandela one's fascinating because you ask half the people you know, or several years ago, but now he's obviously passed away now, but several years ago, you ask and they would say, oh yeah, he died in prison.
I
You ask the other
know.
half the people, and they said, no, he got released from prison and worked for peace. And I mean, these people know that he died and know that he didn't. And that's the kind of thing that happens with a timeline shift. You know, it's like some people know something changed and some people don't.
Yeah.
Some people still think of it the old way and some people don't. But you have an effect even though you don't necessarily know it. And to define these terms a little bit more clearly, a star seed is someone who has had past lives on other planets and other star systems. So
Mm-hmm.
you might feel a connection with Syrian or Arcturian or Lyran or
The Pleiades.
Pleiadians,
Yeah.
Orion. You might feel Andromedan. You might feel Draconian, Antarian. Okay, these are some of the main ones that people can have. These are the races that have worked with humans in the past. A way shower isn't necessarily a star seed, and these again are not gradations. They're just where you're at, what you want to do this time, what you decided to do when you came in this time. A way shower is a leader of some sort. You're going to be like whether or not Deepak Chopra is a star seed, I don't know, but obviously he's a way shower. And a front runner is the third one. I finally remembered.
Yes.
A front runner is not necessarily, it could still be one of the other two, but is someone like, I don't know, maybe myself that's leading a meditation group or something like that. You know, you're doing something to help show the way.
Oh, you're definitely a star seed. I think we already talked about this. We're both like, wait, we're related and
It's
we're
not
both life
important.
path 8 and we're both from, have had experience in Sirius. So I know for a fact I'm a star seed. I am not, I always tell people I am not from here.
So you will have this effect even though you don't know it. You can, and that's on one level or another. I mean, you could have the effect on the 3D level, where you're affecting people around you, or you can have it on the 5D, fifth dimensional level, where it's happening on a much more subtle, like the crystalline grid in Gaia, or the heart grid, among all the people in the planet. You listen to some of these meditations, these guided meditations from these really great people that, like I said, my playlist on YouTube. You will get to know some of the terms and you will hear the ones that resonate with you. Ophina and Sakal, for example, will sometimes are with the Syrians and sometimes with the Lyrans or whatever. But for me, I have found over the last few years, although I started off thinking Pleiadian, Arcturian has been really resonating with me. When I have an Arcturian meditation, something with Arcturians, I really have a great experience. And so that's kind of how you might tell whether or not you've got background, starseed background or something like that. But you can have that effect. Now, tomorrow's meditation, I said we're doing 3, right? 3 in the series. We don't always do it like that, but since there's 3 meditations in 30 days, I started off wanting to work with sacred geometry in the first one. You don't have to listen to the first one from June 5th to attend tomorrow. It will enrich tomorrow's meditation. But there's no way it wouldn't be just as cool to listen to tomorrow's and then go back to listen to the first one. No worries with that. I'm very, very confident about this. So I start off with sacred geometry shapes, and we installed them into each of our chakras using the assistance, if you wanted to use your choice, the assistance offered by one of 7 different races, those first 7 that I mentioned earlier. And in the description of tomorrow's, I actually come out and call them the Galactic Brotherhood and Sisterhood of Light. I didn't want to say that in the description of the first one because I wanted to leave some surprises, and not surprise, but I mean, I didn't want everybody to know what the meditation was going to be like ahead of time. It was like, today I'm telling you this stuff, but there was a lot I'm not telling you about tomorrow, because what we're going to do with these already installed geometry shapes, which I will go through in tomorrow's meditation and describe again, no worries. And I will mention the races again, no worries. But we will then build on that further. And what my goal is, I will mention this because I did put it in the description. I'm not going to tell you how we get there, but my goal is to give everybody an experience of 0 point consciousness, or another way to word that, the quantum field. Did you caught the first one, didn't you?
Yes. I know. I'm excited.
The thing I did with the quantum, with the recording and the live people, so that gave people a taste of the quantum there. And I won't say anything more.
And
I
would definitely recommend it. We'll get the links for all of those. So I'll make sure I get them in the description.
I did put that on YouTube already, by the way.
Yes.
So if you please join the group, I'll let you in. If you whatever anytime. And these are all under the videos tab. But also with this series, I'm being very specific about getting them up there like the same day as soon as possible. My YouTube channel, if you can remember my name, you can remember the YouTube, because it's youtube.com/Brad Walrod.
Yes, and we'll have the links so you guys don't even have to remember.
The link. There are 4 on the homepage. There are 4 meditations, including this one from June 5th, and then a couple from a couple years ago. That had to do with solstice and equinoxes and stuff. I'm bringing them up, but at a pace. I'm just not trying to dump everything. And now that I'm actually putting them on YouTube, I'm trying to make it every couple of weeks or something. And during these 30 days, I want to keep these 3 together, so I will not put any in between. I'll do the June 5th ones up there. The June 20th one will come up there tomorrow, and then the July 5th one. And as one, I wanted them to build on each other. I wanted them to connect to each other. So this one tomorrow is called Connecting to the Galactic Convergence Solstice. That's it.
Yeah. I was about to look. I'm like, I think I have it on the page.
Well, it's Sandra talks about this being a galactic convergence.
Yes.
Okay? And not only, of course, any eclipse is a convergence, and the sun and the moon and the earth are lined up one way or the other, depending on lunar or solar eclipse, but also we're aligned with the galactic center, the central sun and the Milky Way, as well as the galactic ecliptic. So that's where the whole convergence part comes in. And then we're working up toward these freedom codes. When we're working with these geometry shapes, when we're working with these starseed races, we are leading up to accepting and incorporating, and then I'll use the word I want to use, these things called freedom codes. Freedom codes tend to work on your DNA. They open up your DNA. They expand your capabilities, your understanding. And the word I'm not using, and now I will, is embodying. We want to work with these shapes and these aliens, if you will, and then get us to the point where we can embody the codes that are being offered in the meditations and whatever. And by embodying, of course, I mean, putting them in ourselves and using them and being able to keep them and teach them. So it'll be embodying the Eclipse freedom codes, or so. I gotta work on that.
Is that the one on July? Is that what you're doing on July 5th? Oh, this is great.
People out by you are going to say July 4th is the full moon. because
Yeah.
it's 11:30 at night
Yeah. Yeah.
on July 4th. And that's significant. Sandra talks about this in the thing I posted on my event page earlier. It's significant that it's the U.S. Independence Day, is July
Yes.
4th, that it's happening.
And you're talking
But
about freedom codes and true
yes,
independence.
exactly. And so, but I'm first of all, I'm kind of glad it was a little late in the day because I don't really want to do a meditation on a holiday. I
Mm,
actually want people to come, so I'm doing it the next day because for me, 2:30 in the morning will be 2:30 in the morning. Sunday, July
yes.
5th will be the actual full moon. So I'm feel confident doing that. You'll have to get up early for that one because I'm going to do it at 9 a.m. my time, so 6
Yes.
a.m. for you.
So excited. Well, I'm so excited for I'm so excited for the meditation tomorrow. I love this series. I love
Did I
your
say become
energy.
what you believe? The name
Yes,
of the group is Become What You Believe.
become what you believe. And I'm going to
I'm
have
not sure I
all
said
of
that
the
yet.
links in there. Yes, absolutely. Everyone, you are going to be able to find all of the links to Brad's work and the videos. I'm going to add that to the description if you're watching this on Facebook, and I'm going to add that to the description on YouTube. But before we go, I would love to know if you have a nugget of wisdom. I ask all of my guests a nugget of wisdom that you want to leave the group as your last goodbye.
Oh, honestly, I mean, I didn't prepare for that or anything, but I mean, for me, it's always going to come back to the daily practice.
Mm,
You know, daily practice and evaluating. I mean, there's no point in doing it if you're not sure you. I have a little bumper sticker of my own that it's not worth doing if you can't teach it also. And that's probably that life path 8 thing.
I love
Um,
that.
but I mean, for me, it's like it's if you're gonna do it, and there will be times when it's a struggle. The only reason it's going to be worth it is you see, again, you don't want to be attached to the results of your action, but you don't want to be obtuse to it either. You want to make sure, maybe you need a little nudge here, a little nudge there, and maybe you need to do less or more or whatever, or different. So it's doing the daily practice. It adds up. It has a cumulative effect. It honestly does. And when you start doing a second meditation a day, you actually realize you're connecting the two, and then it kind of lasts to the next day. And not only does it kind of builds up. You're ramping up, and you're each time you're building on where you left off instead of starting over again.
Mm.
Okay, so find out what the sweet spot is for you, but a daily practice, and pay attention to whether it's working for you.
Oh, I love that. And what I love that you just said was it does add up. And even if you can't see what's happening in the outside world, you will always eventually feel the inner world changing, which I think is what's really important there.
I have a friend, the dentist, that I said to meditate at night. He surprised the hell out of me. Oh, and this is important because sometimes you may not see something. So watch what other people tell you. Now, obviously, if they're
Yes.
telling you you're no good, then don't listen to them. But he's told me a few years ago, he sees me, it was like once every 6 months or so, right? When I'm up in the Buffalo area, family reunion time or something. And he goes, you are so happy these days. I mean, he's known me since we were 8. So I mean,
Wow.
he really has a perspective that nobody else in my life does, except maybe my mother or something, who doesn't get the meditation, by the way. But he told me just a few years back, he goes, "You are so happy," and that really caught me off guard. I didn't. I needed to hear it from someone else. That there was an example of how it's having an effect.
Mm.
So watch for things like that.
Oh, I will just say that I love your energy. I love talking to
Oh,
you. And this is the effect that you're having on me and that I get to feel every week with this show is I get uplifted by my guests. I get uplifted with this energy as I'm watching you, as I'm hearing you, as I'm tuning in. And I encourage everyone that's watching to really sit and listen and watch. I know sometimes we want to put the video on and wash the dishes and do other things and you're going into that mind zone, but really dive into this episode, dive into some of the other episodes that we have on the YouTube channel, and that is a way to get uplifted, is really by listening to other people and seeing other people that are shining as brightly as you, because you absolutely shine. I love you to death. My family. Um, Brad Walrod, everyone, Become What You Believe is his Facebook group. You're going to find the link in the description after this. He is hosting an amazing meditation tomorrow for the eclipse and the solstice. I'm definitely going to be there, and I hope you guys join as well. You are watching Tea and Magic at the Magic Grove. Every Friday, we go live with a special guest. I'm going to put our links in the description below. If you want to join, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, that's where I tell everyone what's going on. And of course, our Facebook group, Magic Grove, is where we host all of these live. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.